Hi there, and welcome back for another episode with your host Sabrina Ben Salmi on Discussions of Exploration. Today I'm joined with a very special guest called Ben. He has been making me laugh. I've been in stitches. I've asked him to promise to be on his best behaviour, don't laugh too much during this interview. And Ben, please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, firstly, that was very formal. Love that, brilliant. No, it's fantastic. My name is Ben Meunier. I'm a PhD student at Brunel University, London. I'm 23 years old, and I'm currently losing my mind in quarantine. I think that's the best way I could put that. No, I was very impressed. I've never done a podcast before, and that was fantastic. Love that.
First of many. Love it, love it, love it. So just before we went live, guys, it was really awesome just to connect with Ben and just to get some aspects of, like you said, like it is a serious thing for some people. Some people are going out of their mind. So we thought, why don't we jump on and share different aspects? So Ben's going to be talking about BRES, so he will be sharing a bit more about what is BRES, what does that entail, and where's that going. We're going to be talking about dating in quarantine. I love the fact that you brought that up. Try and keep a straight face, Ben. And then his lockdown experience. Obviously, it is going to impact all of us in different ways. A crisis that always impacts us differently because no one's the same, and no two people in a similar situation have the same outcome. So, Ben, over to you. Really, like, I wonder if we can start a bit. If you want to share a bit with the guests about who you are, what you do, and then go into BRES.
Myself. Not really too much to say there, other than studying the PhD in 5G, which takes up most of my time, I find. But personally, just a keen person for exercise and otherwise working on such. My main hobby would be the Brunel Robotics Engineering Society, or BRES for short, because that can be quite the mouthful. BRES is a society that I put together a few years ago at the university for all members from any discipline or any background, any level of experience and such, to work on practical engineering or develop practical engineering skills, because I was very jealous of our amazing design department that had a lot of practical knowledge and skills, and then it seemed like our engineering was rather dispersed across the disciplines, and was kind of isolated in their own way and didn't have a lot of practical ways to manage things. In engineering or in any aspect, you kind of have to take on practical applications. If you're developing something, you're not just going to have an electronic engineer or a mechanical engineer primarily making the entire thing. You're going to be working with all kinds of different people from different areas. And that's why it was quite important for us that we had a kind of community whereby we could all work together. And I'm getting too passionate about this. Where we could all just work together on some cool projects. And since it's really got quite a lot of interest, we've developed a club whereby we have 6 different projects. So we've got drones, rockets, autonomous vehicles, electric cars, medical robots, and a fundamentals project. So the fundamentals is for people who come in for the first time and may be a little bit uneasy about certain aspects like that we would consider core robotics. And so we just kind of teach them the basic skills, give them a taste for it, and show them it's not as daunting as it may seem. And so now we've got a lab space, tools and equipment, and we work with the departments quite a lot, and we put together these projects in our own time, outside of curriculum hours and outside of the curriculum itself, just to kind of explore and have some fun with new technology and what we can do, just kind of giving students that hacker space that they can kind of mess around with, which is always fun and it's always exciting, and you get ups and downs to it. Things break, and that's always a laugh, or set on fire. So it's a good experience. It's a good experience, and it's a good social aspect as well, because engineers, as I know, can often be quite introverted or kind of like to themselves, and so it's nice to have a kind of community where you can share interests that you might not often be able to do or have access to. Like before this, I never really flew rockets, or drones is kind of difficult to do with so many laws. So now we've got access to funding and we can mess around with some really cool stuff. So yeah, that's what BRES do. which is cool. Yeah.
Wow. Like, welcome. Thank you for meeting you for the first time, Ben. It feels like I know so much more after speaking to you here, because obviously we've met each other at Brunel via the access of Leslie, obviously. Leslie Warren, who's amazing. I am so taken back that, you know, you've created this space where people can have this experiential, immersive learning. And I cannot agree more, is that that's such a key core area that once you immerse and you get used to, actually, it's how it's going to be in the real world. When I do graduate, when I do finish my PhD, that's absolutely amazing.
Well, it's that kind of, like, you know, it's very easy for a student to pass their grades just learning the kind of the words, the text, the formulas, but it's something else to say to a company that I haven't just done this on paper, where you ignore air resistance or you ignore certain parameters or thermal. You put that in a real application, you build the thing, and you realize something didn't work, or actually it's going to go next to a really hot component and that's going to burn it, or that can't go there, you have to move things around. There's the real world has limitations, and it's about seeing those in a real practical aspect that is a far better way to learn. And it then kind of gets ingrained in your mind. So the minute you've worked with a component before, you kind of understand how it works and why it works in that way. So it supports the learning that you do in lectures and in university. And then you can go to a company and say, I built this thing and I've that initiative. And so it's about sharing and kind of learning in a new dynamic way that's really important to me.
That is so in alignment with my parenting style, because not to take it off on a tangent, just very quickly to add to what you're saying, is that there's some research that we looked into. I was on a podcast with Dr. I, and she was talking about it's 10% of what guarantees someone's success in their journey is only 10% academics, 20% socializing, and a whopping 70% what you've created is that experiential immersive learning. That, hey, this is not what I've just not studied this at university. Yeah. I've actually had a real life experience. I've tested this, I've created this. Like, they somewhat bring so much more value to whatever establishment they desire to integrate into. It's amazing. Thank you.
About that life experience. It's so easy to hear something, regurgitate it for an exam or something, and then just forget all about it. You know, that's so easy to do. But the minute you say, oh, I did that one time, I really worked on this, you'll carry that with you for life. You know, that's an experience. It's more ingrained. It's I think a better way of learning.
I really do. And I feel that that's where things are going now. I think slowly different educational establishments are starting to realize that it's partially theoretical, and, you know, I know that bit is important, but actually we need the realistic side. We need to know, what is that immersive experience? How do I show up? And, like, obviously, if you're saying that some people can be quite introverts, how do we actually work in a team? They'll be able to see their strengths and weaknesses in that respect as well, because they may be brilliant, but then integrating into establishment and realizing they have to actually maybe talk to people and they've not done that. I love what you've put together. I really love what you've put together.
It's an added bonus. It's not something we drive for, but it's an added bonus to know that people that also, who often in certain environments wouldn't be socializing, can develop more social skills and learn how to interact and work in a team. Because as much as people probably hate group projects, unfortunately, most of the time you're going to end up working with other people, and you're going to have to manage that. So absolutely, it's nice to get that experience out of the way and iron out the kinks as early as possible, right?
I agree. The key there, teamwork makes the dream work. I really appreciate that. Listeners, I really want you to take on board what Ben's sharing, because I think it's so amazing. You know, you may be a student thinking about going into engineering, or you may already be doing that at any level, be that, you know, master's or PhD like Ben is. I really think that you should take a look at what BRES has to offer. And towards the end of the interview, you can leave some information, links as to how people can reach out with you and connect, please, Ben. Is there anything else you wanted to share around BRES, or should we move on to the next aspect of your discussion?
I will just do a little bit of promo.
Go ahead.
What's kind of been upsetting is towards the end of the year, we were so close to finishing our projects. So we had all 6 of the projects, we had deadlines, and then obviously coronavirus, I'm sure that we'll get onto, it's on everyone's mind. Coronavirus kept in, and suddenly all of our projects had to come to a halt, because not only did the university state that you can't meet, but it wouldn't be socially responsible to have people meeting. during that time. And so we cut off all the projects, and so all of them had to come to a standstill, which was quite a shame. And the lab became locked down, and we didn't really know what we could do. And then what's quite nice is seeing, people are now printing or 3D printing personal protective equipment for hospitals. And so we saw that someone in our university, Paul Joss, who's the head of the design department, was actually taking the initiative to take all of his 3D printers from the department and just start manufacturing all these kind of face masks for the key workers in the NHS. And so we realized that we had 4 or 5 of our own, and we could try and help commit to the cause. And so what we set up now is, and this can kind of work as a bit of a plea as well. We've now taken our 3D printers out of the lab. We've taken them back to our homes. So some of the committee are working together, and we're starting to print and manufacture as much of this kind of personal protective equipment, PPE, as possible. And so it's quite nice knowing that while BRES has stopped for the year, because we can't do anything, it's still possible to do something and benefit and help out in a small way, like through these kind of means. And so I guess in a way I'd say, if you are interested in helping or would like to somehow manufacture PPE and you've got access to a 3D printer, then you can obviously support us. We've got all the kind of resources you need, or I would suggest really looking up local areas or places that might be doing this already. I know that there's companies online that are trying to manufacture as much of this as possible and could really do with your support. So if there's anyone that's interested in this kind of thing, then I would really urge you to just turn on your 3D printer and get going. I know not everyone has one, but there's other ways you can help out. So yeah, that's
nice. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's such an amazing cause, like the fact that you're doing that to help so many. And listeners, like if you do have access to equipment, if you would like to team up with someone locally or contact BRES, please do so. And like we said, we're definitely going to leave some contacts, links, social medias and so on and so forth towards the end. Yeah, so what where are we going? I love your sign in the back. We were talking about what you were doing during lockdown.
Yeah, lockdown. So we were discussing before how people have, all the doom and gloom of it is very easy to get lost in. But it's nice to have a little bit of focus on the kind of creativity that people have done. Like, you're locked in a house, but you want to do things that you wouldn't do outside of the house. How do you manage that? So I've seen a lot of people doing these kind of pub quizzes. We've done them ourselves here at the house with our mates on Zoom and Skype. We've done family pub quizzes, and we've even turned, this is the name of our in-house pub, our public house, for the social distancing, which is a little play on words there. So it's been nice to see kind of how people are adapting and how technology and social media and everything else is kind of helping benefit that.
Yeah. And you went onto YouTube, is that right? And did your karaoke on there? I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, we tried a karaoke night and basically just did jukebox YouTube videos, and it was just blaring out some Westlife numbers, a bit of Oasis, Carly Rae Jepsen, just singing out all the classics, just in our sitting room at each other, but it somehow worked. It's kind of have to become a little bit more creative and imaginative and accept things. But yeah, no, it's interesting. It's one way to survive in a house with people that you wouldn't normally be trapped with.
True, very true.
I think one way to put it.
Yeah, and I really love that what you touched on is that some people are brilliant, like when it comes to being at home, they could just work on, they have no issues. But then some people, it's like, I don't know how to work at home because I'm so used to going out of the house to work. Like I see home as my place to relax, not to work in. And then obviously the mix that, sometimes we get inspired by different aspects. I wonder if you could share a little bit about that then.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we touched on my personal struggles previously with working at home. It's a very weird concept and mental change between, I leave and that's when I'm at work, and then I come home and that's my, relaxation, safe space. I don't have to do anything there. And now the two have had to kind of like become one. And it's a very strange concept, especially, you know, I tried working downstairs, and like making like the conservatory into like my workspace, but then there was too many distractions, people walking in, out, you know, friends wanting to do things, and I'm like, well, go on then, you know, like, I mean, I'm not at work, so why not? So yeah, it's also, you know, create that little workspace for yourself is so important. So I had to do the whole bedroom rearrange, and give myself like a designated desk, and still somehow there's little things, little noises around the house that will trigger me, and I'm like, well, there's something else to do. You know, it's so much harder to get into that focused mindset. But even still, somehow, you know, we make it work, even though it's challenging. It's not impossible. So yeah, no, it's good.
Work in progress, right? You know, some days we'll have our good days and our bad days, and you know, we were talking about like really important, like as you're listening, listeners, is like, how do you tap into what works for you? Because I think it's not really about a cookie cutter formula, because we had a conversation about this, right? Is that, you know, kind of having a feeler, you know, just thinking about, okay, what little bit work for me? So Ben and I were talking, so I was going, oh, what about, you know, having little breaks, because I wasn't sure where Ben was at with that, and he was like, no, I kind of, once I get in, I like to go. And I'm like that as well, like, do not interrupt the flow. Once I get into flow, I have to stay there for hours and hours and hours. So once it's going, so it's just for you to really tap into like what's working for you. And again, I love what you said, like coming down into the lounge or trying at a conservatory, like what works for one won't work for someone else, but just be very experimentative. And listeners, like, I want you to not be so hard on yourself. It's not, you know, everybody's been chucked into this at the same time. So we're all in the same boat, and it was such an impromptu shift, right? I love the way you're saying like the two had to become one. So it's a case of like allowing yourself to ease into that flow, allowing yourself to go, okay, let me try that out. Maybe I'm too work focused, and maybe you need to take on some of Ben's tips with him and his housemates, you know, mix a bit of pleasure and studying, working, whatever needs to be done. And I think that's so nice to just give yourself the freedom. I think sometimes the hardest challenge is that you're being too hard on yourself, being too hard, going, oh my God, it's not working. Well, actually, instead of doing that and beating yourself up, just go, okay, let's try something new. What else is going to work? Maybe you just have to have someone on the end of a Skype call, because we were talking about that. It's one thing having flatmates or having family or having friends. That's such a gift and something to really cherish. But I know listeners, there's some of you are going to be listening and you're at home on your own. And these are the things that Ben and I were talking about. You know, as human beings, we are social creatures. We need to connect, and just make sure you don't just say to people like, oh, I'm okay, if you're not really feeling okay, and just say, could you check on me in the morning? You know, could we have a call at night? You know, make sure you're reaching out and connecting, because I think now, like what Ben's saying, everyone wants to do their bit. And if people don't know, they can't help. I don't know if you've got to say around that.
No, I think that's really true. Honestly, if you're in a position where you are alone, I don't know how hard that must be, because that would terrify me. But you know, if you are in that situation, then I would very much recommend exactly what you said. You know, reaching out to people, saying, would you mind like checking in and all the rest. I mean, in my situation now, I found things that work for me. You know, being very clear with housemates, you're doing that washing up. No, being very clear, you know, this is my work time, and this is when I can like relax with you, and kind of about discussing your schedule with the people you're with, so that they don't tread on your toes, and you kind of give yourself that space, because I know that everyone's probably suffering from being around people far too much. So kind of being very clear about the guidelines that you need, and yeah, like you said, mixing things up. So I've tried different workspaces. I've tried exercising in the morning or midday or afternoon. I've tried, you know, when do I even have lunch? Like trying to move things around just so it kind of works to how you best focus. It's definitely you have to experiment, because this is a very odd one.
Exactly. Do you know what I love what you touched on with regards to inserting boundaries? I think it's so nice to just verbalize, because in this situation it become a melting pot if we don't. It's really nice to say, like, you know, I kind of, when I'm working, and maybe I don't like someone kind of tapping in and out, or, you know, I will do that if just give me a minute. I think it's so important that we really home in on being honest with ourselves and people around us, and communication is key. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think that will throw a spanner at the waterworks if you do, you just go, okay, I won't say anything, because it just builds up and it builds up until the point where you just explode.
You can get yourself into the perfect mindset, the perfect workspace, but if someone just keeps banging on your door asking you to, do this for me in 1 second, then you're not going to get anywhere, because you don't have, well, I want to say you don't have that at work. We always have that at work, colleague. Hi, can you check this for me? No, like it is about being clear and setting kind of guidelines for like, now I am working, because it's hard for other people to know as well. Like, are you in your room just watching Netflix, or are you actually doing something that I can't interrupt?
Absolutely.
So yeah, exactly for this reason, my housemates are all upstairs, because I told them I'd have a call with you.
Way to go, Ben. I've got my ones hovering around this sort of like, yeah. So it's interesting, and it's just knowing that dynamics, because some people are off and some people aren't. Like, I've been working from home and I homeschool, so it's not like a holiday for us. It's like, you know, it's the same for us as a normal day. So it's really nice to kind of verbalize, saying, well, hey guys, I've got to work, I still got to work, I still got to do these things, but we'll connect at some point. And be nice and balanced. I think it's like Ben's saying, mix it up a bit. It's like, it's so important that you find times to breathe. It's so important to allocate time to nothingness, you know, because if you're not used to being on top of each other for such long periods of time, and you cannot go out. So Ben and I were talking about like our inner child going, I'm okay being at home, but the fact you've told me to stay at home, now here's the thing.
I don't even know where I'd go. I just need to be outside, just breathing.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you see me on the news, like climbing out my window going, yeah, I'm going to go, you know where it came from.
I can honestly say I have never seen my housemate go on more walks to clear his head than he's ever been. One a day, but still, before I think everyone's kind of struggling with this. My housemate, I've never seen him go out for more walks to clear his head than now. I don't know whether it's like, obviously one a day, because stay safe. But you know, likewise, I don't know whether it's the fact that I'm being told I can't go outside, and it's that rebellious nature, or it's whether, you know, it's the fact that we're just kind of so claustrophobic now in our houses. But yeah, he's out taking walks, and I've never seen him do that. Just trying to claim every second he can outside. That's good. That's good.
I love it.
It's a nice way to keep away from people, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, moving on to the dating aspect. See, I was really excited when you actually mentioned that you'd like to discuss this.
Yeah, maybe I made a mistake.
But I think it's an area that we need to really, I think you as listeners, I hope you agree that it's an area I've not really seen discussed much during this period, because I know that a friend of a friend travelled for a work reason, and he couldn't get back home. So, and they have like an indefinite time as to when he will be home. And it's just like managing the relationship at that distance. And, you know, it throws up things that you're not prepared for, because again, like what Ben said, it's not a case of, well, we're deciding to have some time apart. It's like, you don't have any choice. So you're going to have to be creative around this. So over to you, Ben. So you wanted to discuss dating in quarantine.
Yeah. So to build on what you've said, exactly. It's that whole, it's so, you know, there's how do you manage to maintain relationships? Like, you know, families are trying to message each other. We're all contacting our friends, trying to stay sane. But it's the kind of the fresh ones, or the trying to make new relationships while in quarantine is a very, very strange idea. And I might get into so much trouble.
Don't share anything that's going to.
So it's yeah. In my experience, you know, I've got friends here, and I can draw from their experiences that they've tried. I don't know if you've heard of like online virtual dating, which is essentially using a dating app, and then you get to know someone, you have the normal discussion, and then instead of the actual physical date where you meet up, you just have essentially what we're having now, like a FaceTime or a Zoom call. And you somehow have to make a date, which seems incredibly daunting to me. But it's, you know, it's what people are resorting to, because we're kind of having to sidestep the problem and come up with a new solution. So I know my housemates have been doing virtual dating with new people for the first time. In my experience, I've been trapped in this very awkward situation. I don't know, I don't want to say too much, but I went on some very early dates with one person, and then quarantine struck, and it's kind of like, what do you do now? So continuing along the lines, it's had to become a lot more of a kind of, how do you go on dates, or how do you interact still, like maintain that, especially through the early periods.
Yes, exactly.
And so it's become quite fun. I think you have to be open to new, like, weird scenarios. And so we've done, like, Netflix dating, watching just a movie together as if you went to the cinema. We've done like bake-offs and stuff. So watching the Great British Bake Off Celebrity Edition. So there's that. So we did like a baking thing together, and like quiz nights, obviously, and like 20 questions to get to know each other, that kind of stuff. And so you really have to like try and figure something out. And it's obviously challenging. It's not easy, but I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that are trying to date, or like me, have been kind of stuck in the very early points where it's like, I'm trying to impress this person. and suddenly like, oh no, I can't actually see them. I've got to somehow convince them that I'm a likable person over a FaceTime or something. So thank God for technology. It's all I can say.
Tell me about it. I really love what you touched on, and I couldn't help but think while you were discussing that, isn't it interesting that it will somewhat complement the relationship to the extent that the physical aspect is extended, and you get that, I don't know how to kind of word it, but that scope to really get connected at a deeper level, to really go into like how does this person connect, like how do we interconnect our similarities, and you can discover so much about each other without having that, just that physicality. Not saying that it's all good, because obviously we're human beings, we like to connect, but I really love that immersive, like, let's just watch a movie together and let's just relax, and as we come out of this storm, because it will pass, you've got such a deep sense of what you're like, what the person's doing at home, and kind of just being a fly on the wall sort of experience.
It is, and like, you're very right, it's kind of a weird scenario in the sense of it's going to spawn a lot of very strange relationships. In the sense that, I joke about this with the person I'm talking to at the moment. We're always joking that when we meet up, will we be able to even communicate in person anymore? Or will it very much be like hi, how are you doing? Like, how will we be able to interact? Will it have changed kind of how we are? I don't imagine it will, but it's an interesting idea. And one of the other things is kind of, like you said, you can get to know someone a lot more. And I think because you have to come up with questions, I think if you meet up, you can just, enjoy a drink, maybe enjoy some quiet time together. You don't always have like, hey, hi, what are you doing? But when you're, like online, like you start to learn a lot about their routine, about what they're doing, meeting family over the FaceTime already.
Yes.
It's quite interesting to kind of think what in this kind of dynamic you might have like almost sped up. So what things would you have missed, and what things might have actually changed because you're meeting this way. And so definitely learning a lot more about each other, because you just have to talk all the time. Like it's just natural. But also one thing that we figured out was learning about each other's bad traits. I think I think it's one thing, if you're just texting and then you meet up on the odd date or so, both of you kind of make an impression to look good and look the part, and it's important to do even when you're virtual dating, when you every now and then dress up, make an effort. But I can safely say that I've seen this girl in what she would call her worst state. Just like waking up in the mornings and just like, hi, how you doing? Like both of us, just hair everywhere. And just knowing that you don't have to concern yourself with it so much, and so you definitely see certain elements of someone that I don't think you would have if you'd just have met in person the entire time, like conventional dating.
Yeah,
So
I'm 40. I'm 40 now, and looking back, like you're 23. I think that is such a gift in a really nice way, that it's like it's an authentic way of dating. It's bringing it back to the old school. That it's like, yes, I'm going to make an effort, but this is who I am. Like, I'm not worried about you seeing my blind spots, my good, bad, so-called ugly sides. It's like, this is all of me. And I think that's such a beautiful way and a very authentic way of actually starting a relationship.
Ironically authentic, not meeting in person.
Unfortunately, we were experiencing a host of technical issues with the internet connection. So sorry about that. We actually lost the last part of the interview. I had an absolutely amazing time having a conversation with you, Ben. So thank you so much for joining me. And for you listeners, for those of you that would like to reach out to Ben with regards to BRES or anything else that he's mentioned, I will be leaving some contact details in the description box of the website. It's www.brunelrobotics.com. But as I said, I will pop in all that information into the description box. Thank you.